I sat shivering on my bathroom floor at 4:37 in the morning, phone pressed against my burning cheek. The digital thermometer blinked 105.2 degrees Fahrenheit. Each breath felt like swallowing glass, while my joints screamed in rebellion. When Mira, our HR director, answered with that signature customer service chirp, I could barely form words. I can't. I can't come in today, I managed, my voice cracking like thin ice. Her pause told me everything before she even spoke. Caroline, the Anderson presentation is today. The entire executive team will be there. I know, but I'm really sick. My teeth chattered against the phone. My fever's over 105. Another pause. Longer this time. I heard keyboard clicks. We're already short-staffed after Gregory's departure. There's simply no one else who knows the material. Her voice dropped to a whisper. Hiss. Between us, upper management is watching this project closely. Absences now would reflect poorly. I pressed my forehead against the cool tile wall. Please, I can barely stand. Everyone gets fevers, Caroline. Take some medicine and push through. We're counting on you. The call ended. I didn't even remember saying goodbye. I leaned over the toilet and vomited until there was nothing left but bitter yellow bile. The bathroom light splintered through my tears, fracturing into prisms that hurt my eyes. 3 years of perfect attendance. 3 years of skipped lunches and late nights. 3 years of just until I get promoted, and they'll notice my dedication eventually. And this was what it amounted to. A burning body on a cold bathroom floor, dispensable despite my indispensability. I didn't know then that this moment, this exact moment of betrayal, would change everything. Not just for me, but for hundreds of people I'd never even met. My name is Caroline Weiss. I'm 29. And until 6 months ago, I was a project coordinator at one of those companies people line up to work for. The kind with motivational phrases painted on the walls and free granola bars in the break room, as if snacks compensate for expecting your soul as a signing bonus. Let me pause for a moment. Before I go any further, could you please take a few seconds to tell me in the comments where you're watching from? I want to know my story reached real people with real jobs who might be sitting at their desks right now, feeling as trapped as I once did. And if my story resonates with you, please like and subscribe, because what happened to me is happening to people everywhere, in corner offices and cubicles across the world. I should back up slightly. 3 weeks before that bathroom floor moment, I'd taken my first vacation in 2 years. Not to lounge on some beach, but to volunteer at a medical outreach program in rural Guatemala. I'd saved for months to afford the trip, arranging coverage for my workload with meticulous planning. My team lead, Verna, had approved it with obvious reluctance, reminding me how generous the company was being. I spent 14 days helping doctors set up mobile clinics in villages where healthcare was a luxury, not a right. The work was grueling, but fulfilling in ways my job had never been. I filed paperwork, translated when possible, and held the hands of scared children getting their first ever vaccines. The night before I left, Doctor. Acosta noticed me swatting repeatedly at my arm. The mosquitoes here are persistent, he said, frowning slightly. You've been using repellent? I nodded, showing him the nearly empty bottle in my bag. He shrugged. Probably nothing. But if you feel unwell when you return home, mention your travel to your doctor. Sometimes these things take time to show themselves. I didn't think much of it then, but 10 days after returning to work, with the Anderson presentation looming, something inside me began to break down. It started with fatigue I attributed to jet lag. Then came joint pain that made typing agony. By the night before my bathroom floor confession, my skin burned with fever while I simultaneously shivered with chills. After Mira dismissed my illness, I somehow managed to dress myself. Each movement felt like navigating through thick mud. I took 4 ibuprofen, knowing it exceeded the recommended dose. I needed to function just long enough to get through this presentation. The drive to work remains a blur in my memory, a dangerous haze of missed turns and narrowly avoided accidents. The office building swayed before me as I shuffled through the lobby. In the elevator, I caught my reflection. Glassy eyes, flushed cheeks, dark circles that looked like bruises. Verna spotted me immediately as I stumbled to my desk. Jesus, Caroline, you look terrible. Not concern, assessment, like I was a damaged product she needed to evaluate for usefulness. Fever, I mumbled. R said I needed to be here. She stepped back slightly. Well, the presentation isn't until 11. Pull yourself together by then. I nodded, though my neck screamed in protest. The room tilted sideways as I lowered myself into my chair, my skin impossibly hot against the cool fabric. Tonisha, the new marketing assistant whose desk faced mine, watched with widening eyes. Caroline, she whispered, you should be in a hospital. I tried to smile. After the presentation, the next 2 hours disintegrated into a nightmare collage, attempting to review slides that swam before my eyes, dropping a full water bottle that exploded across the carpet, stumbling to the bathroom where I pressed paper towels soaked in cold water against my neck. At 10:45, Verna appeared at my desk. Time to set up the conference room. Her eyes narrowed. Are you wearing makeup? You need to look professional, regardless of how you feel. The absurdity struck me with such force that I nearly laughed. Instead, I nodded again and reached for my presentation materials with trembling hands. The conference room felt miles away. Each step required concentration I didn't possess. As I arranged materials around the long table, something shifted inside me, something more profound than just physical illness. I fumbled for my phone and did what I should have done hours earlier. I called an urgent care center 3 blocks away and described my symptoms, including my recent travel. The nurse who answered didn't hesitate. Come in immediately. Do not go to work. Do not take public transportation. Wear a mask if you have one. I'm already at work, I whispered, watching Verna direct staff into the room. Then you need to leave. Now, the nurse's voice sharpened. Fevers that high following travel to certain regions could indicate illnesses that are both serious and potentially contagious. A strange calm settled over me. I walked to Verna, legs threatening to buckle with each step. I need to go to urgent care. My fever is dangerously high, and I might be contagious. She glanced at the executives filtering into the room. Now is not the time, Caroline. We'll get you to a doctor after lunch. You don't understand. No, you don't understand. Her voice dropped to a whisper as she gripped my elbow. This presentation determines whether we secure the Anderson account. That's $6 million in revenue and potentially everyone's bonuses, including yours. So unless you're actually dying, you need to stand up straight and smile through this. We all get sick. We all push through. The words hit me like a physical blow, not because they were cruel, but because I recognized them. They were my words reflected back at me. How many times had I pushed through illness, exhaustion, personal crises? How many times had I worn my ability to handle it like a badge of honor? I'd built my professional identity on being unbreakable, and now I was shattering in real time. I don't remember making the decision, but suddenly I was stepping back, away from Verna, away from the conference room with its expectant executives. I am leaving now, I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the inferno raging through my body. I might have a contagious tropical disease from my volunteer work. I need medical attention. Her face transformed from irritation to alarm, then to something worse, calculation. Lower your voice. You're being dramatic. Am I? I looked around at the crowded room, at people helping themselves to the breakfast pastries I'd ordered yesterday while barely able to hold my head up, because the urgent care nurse just told me to leave immediately. Fine, Verna hissed. Go, but understand what this means for your future here. I understood perfectly. As I backed away, the room tilted again. Someone asked if I was okay. Someone else commented on how flushed I looked. I didn't answer either of them. The journey to urgent care exists only as fractured images in my memory. The receptionist's face when I told her about Guatemala, the nurse who immediately isolated me, the doctor's alarm when he saw my temperature. "You should be in a hospital, not an office," he said, his face serious behind his mask as he examined me. "What were they thinking, making you come in like this?" That's when I started crying. Not delicate tears, but harsh, body-racking sobs that hurt my already aching chest. They said to push through. I managed between gasps. They always say that. He shook his head, already writing orders for blood tests, already making calls. "You have symptoms consistent with several tropical illnesses, some of which can be highly contagious. We need to determine which one before we know the appropriate treatment." The word contagious penetrated my fever haze. I thought about the conference room full of people, about Tanisha sitting across from me all morning, about the doorknobs I'd touched, the elevator buttons I'd pressed. "I need to warn my office," I said. The doctor nodded. "Yes, you should. Depending on what we're dealing with, there could be public health concerns." He stepped out to order my tests, and I sat alone in the exam room, my phone heavy in my hand. Who should I call? Verna, who'd dismissed my illness. Mira in HR, who'd told me to take medicine and push through. The company's general information line? As I scrolled through my contacts, I remembered something else. The briefing we'd received before leaving Guatemala. The health department specialist who'd given us her card, telling us to call immediately if we developed certain symptoms within 3 weeks of returning. Dr. Eleanor Whitman, Infectious Disease Surveillance Unit. With shaking fingers, I found her number and pressed call. "This is Dr. Whitman. My name is Caroline Weiss. I volunteered in Guatemala last month with Medical Bridges. You spoke to our group about reporting post-travel illness." Her voice sharpened. "What symptoms are you experiencing?" I described everything. The fever, joint pain, rash beginning to spread across my torso. "Where are you now?" she asked. "Parkside Urgent Care. But I was at work all morning. They wouldn't let me take sick leave." A pause. "You went to work with these symptoms after returning from an endemic region?" "They said everyone gets fevers, that I needed to push through for an important presentation." I heard her typing rapidly. "Which company is this?" I told her. More typing. Then, "Ms. Weiss, your doctor will be coordinating with our department directly. Your test results will be expedited. But I need to ask you some questions about your workplace exposure today." What happened next would alter the course of not just my life, but an entire corporate culture. With that single phone call, made from an urgent care exam room, while my body waged war against an invader it couldn't defeat alone, I unknowingly set in events that would expose something far more toxic than any tropical disease. As I answered Dr. Whitman's questions about who I'd been in contact with, which areas of the building I'd accessed, and whether anyone else seemed ill, I had no idea. I just lit a fuse that would eventually explode the foundation of a system built on the broken bodies of its most dedicated employees. The doctor returned with nurses who took vials of blood and swabs from my throat and nose. They started IV fluids and medication to bring down my fever. Someone mentioned hospital transfer. Someone else said the words, "Public Health Emergency Protocol." Through it all, my phone remained silent. No calls from work asking if I was okay. No messages wishing me well. Until 3:27 in the evening, when a text from Verna appeared. "Need update on your status for tomorrow's follow-up meeting." Not, "How are you?" Not, "What did the doctor say?" Just a demand for information about my ability to produce. I stared at those words as a team of hospital workers transferred me to a gurney as they wheeled me toward an ambulance that would take me to the regional medical center's isolation unit. As a nurse gently removed my phone and placed it in a sealed container for decontamination, that's when I knew this wasn't just about one bad day or one bad manager. This was about a system designed to extract maximum value from human beings until they break, then discard them without a second thought. And I decided, through the fog of fever and medication, that if I survived whatever was attacking my body, I would not allow that system to remain unchallenged. What I didn't realize was how soon that challenge would come, or how completely it would transform not just my life, but the lives of hundreds of others. But the full impact of that single phone call to Dr. Whitman wouldn't become clear until long after my fever broke, until after I learned the name of the disease that nearly killed me, until after I discovered just how close I'd come to starting an outbreak that could have had consequences beyond anything my company's leadership could have imagined in their worst nightmares. The doctors diagnosed me with dengue hemorrhagic fever, a severe form that can be fatal without proper treatment. For 3 days, I drifted in and out of consciousness in the isolation unit, while my platelets dropped to dangerous levels and my organs threatened to shut down. On the fourth day, when I finally became lucid enough to understand what was happening around me, a woman in a crisp blazer was sitting beside my bed, typing notes on a tablet. "Ms. Weiss," she said when she noticed me watching her. "I'm Constance Rivera, with the Department of Public Health. When you're feeling up to it, I'd like to ask you some questions about your workplace exposure. Am I in trouble?" My voice sounded like it belonged to someone else, thin and raspy from disuse. She shook her head. "Quite the opposite. Your call to Dr. Whitman triggered a public health intervention that may have prevented a significant outbreak." I blinked slowly, trying to process her words through the lingering brain fog. Outbreak? Dengue isn't typically contagious person to person, but your blood work revealed you were also carrying a secondary infection, a particularly aggressive strain of influenza you contracted, while your immune system was compromised by the dengue. She adjusted her glasses. With your fever that high and being symptomatic in an enclosed office environment, you could have infected dozens of people, some of whom might have gone on to infect others before realizing they were sick. The room seemed to shrink around me. All those people in the conference room, Tanisha at the desk across from mine, the receptionist I'd spoken to that morning, the people who shared my elevator. Did I get anyone sick? That's what we're investigating. Your company wasn't particularly cooperative at first, but that changed once we explained the potential legal implications of obstructing a public health investigation. A nurse entered to check my vitals, and Constance stood. "Rest now. We can talk more when you're stronger." But as she reached the door, I called out, "Has anyone from my work contacted the hospital? Asked about me?" Her pause told me everything. "I'll check with your care team," she said gently, and left. Later that day, my phone decontaminated and returned to me. Showed a single message from Mira in HR. "Please update on expected return date and provide doctor's documentation for extended absence." No well wishes, no concern for my condition, just administrative requirements. I was too weak to feel angry, too empty to feel betrayed. All I felt was a strange, hollow clarity, like seeing the true shape of something that had been disguised all along. On day 6, Dr. Whitman herself visited my hospital room. Unlike Constance, she didn't carry a tablet or take notes. She simply pulled a chair close to my bed and spoke plainly. "Your workplace created a situation that could have had devastating consequences," she said, "not just for you, but potentially for hundreds of others." She explained that their investigation had revealed several disturbing facts. I wasn't the first employee pressured to work while seriously ill. The company had no real sick leave policy beyond the legally mandated minimum. Management routinely discouraged people from taking time off, creating a culture where presenteeism working while sick was not just common, but expected. "But here's what they didn't know," she continued. "Your company's CEO, Roland Mercer, is a transplant recipient. He's immunocompromised. Had you infected someone who then came in contact with him while he was in the building for your presentation, the consequences could have been fatal." I closed my eyes, imagining the headline, "CEO dies after employee forced to work with tropical fever." "What happens now?" I asked. "We've issued citations for creating workplace conditions that endangered public health. They're required to implement immediate policy changes and undergo mandatory training. But there may be additional consequences, depending on what else our investigation uncovers." She hesitated, then added, "They're also trying very hard to reach you. Apparently their legal team has concerns." I bet they did. 2 days later, I was discharged with instructions for follow-up care and ongoing monitoring. My parents drove 5 hours to take me to their home, where I would spend the next 3 weeks recovering. During those quiet days, As my body slowly rebuilt its strength, my phone filled with messages, not from friends or concerned colleagues, but from Mira, Verna, and increasingly, names I didn't recognize from the company's legal department. I responded to none of them. Instead, I spoke daily with Constance, who updated me on the investigation's progress. I learned that 17 of my coworkers had reported symptoms consistent with influenza in the days following my hospitalization. 3 had been hospitalized themselves. 1, an older administrative assistant with asthma, had developed pneumonia. The company's carefully constructed image was crumbling under public health scrutiny. Each day brought new revelations: inadequate sick leave policies, an internal communication system that punished honesty about health concerns, managers who received bonuses partly based on their team's attendance records. 26 days after I collapsed at work, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. "Caroline, this is Roland Mercer, the CEO himself." My heart jumped into my throat. "I hope I'm not disturbing your recovery," he continued when I didn't immediately respond. "No," I managed. "I'm surprised to hear from you." "I imagine so," he sighed. A weary sound that contained none of the polished confidence I remembered from company meetings. "I've been trying to reach you for some time, but your lawyers advised against direct contact." Lawyers. Plural. I had exactly one lawyer, a former college roommate, who'd agreed to field calls from the company until I decided what to do. But Roland didn't need to know that. "I wanted to speak with you personally," he continued. "What happened to you was inexcusable. I've spent the past 3 weeks learning things about our company culture that—" He paused. "Well, frankly, things I should have known long ago." I said nothing, letting the silence stretch between us. The health department's investigation has been extensive, as has our own internal review. I'm calling because I want you to hear directly from me what changes we're implementing before the public announcement tomorrow. What followed was a comprehensive overhaul: unlimited paid sick leave with no doctor's note required for the first 5 days, removal of attendance metrics from performance evaluations, termination of managers found to have pressured ill employees to work, mandatory health safety training for all staff, and the creation of a confidential reporting system for workplace health concerns. We've also made personnel changes," he added carefully. "Verna and Mira no longer work for the company." I thought I'd feel satisfaction hearing this. Instead, I felt oddly hollow. They were just 2 parts of a much larger problem. "Why are you telling me this?" I finally asked. "Because you deserve to know, and because I'm hoping you'll consider coming back once you're fully recovered." I almost laughed. "You want me to come back after everything that happened?" "Yes, but not to your old position." His voice grew firmer. "We're creating a new role, Employee Advocacy Director, someone who reports directly to me, with the authority to address workplace health and safety concerns, without interference from management. Someone who's experienced firsthand what happens when those concerns are ignored." I sat with that for a moment, trying to process what he was offering. "Why would you trust me with that? I'm the person who brought in health inspectors who nearly shut down your company." "Precisely." The word came quickly. "You did what no one else had the courage to do. You put health and safety above corporate pressure. That's exactly the perspective we need." After we hung up, I sat on my parents' porch swing, watching spring flowers push through the soil in the garden. New life emerging after a dormant period. There was poetry in that, I supposed. The next day, Roland's announcement made national news. My phone exploded with messages from former colleagues, most expressing shock at the changes, many thanking me for actions I hadn't even taken with them in mind. Tanisha's message hit hardest. "You nearly died because they wouldn't let you go home sick, and somehow you turned it into better conditions for all of us. I don't know how to thank you." 3 weeks later, after careful consideration and lengthy discussions with my new lawyer, a proper employment attorney this time, I accepted Roland's offer with negotiated conditions, including remote work options for all employees and expanded health benefits. My first day back wasn't in the office, but at a company-wide virtual meeting where Roland introduced the new policies and my role in implementing them. Seeing hundreds of familiar faces on my screen, people whose work lives would tangibly improve because of changes I'd helped create, I felt something unexpected. Purpose. As the meeting ended and individual messages of support flooded the chat, I realized something profound had shifted. My illness hadn't just changed company policy, it had changed me. The person who'd once prided herself on pushing through anything now understood the true cost of that mentality, not just to individual health, but to public safety. The employee wellness program we implemented over the next year became a model for other companies in the industry. Our sick leave usage actually decreased once people stopped coming to work infected and spreading illness throughout the office. Productivity rose, turnover dropped. Roland, to his credit, became the program's most vocal champion, speaking openly about his own vulnerability as an immunocompromised person and how the old culture had endangered him without his knowledge. 6 months after my return, I received an unexpected email from Verna. I almost deleted it unread, but curiosity won out. "I won't ask for forgiveness," she wrote. "What I did was wrong, and I've had to live with knowing my actions nearly cost you your life. But I want you to know that I'm carrying the lessons forward. In my new position, I've implemented many of the changes you pioneered. Your illness opened my eyes to how broken the system was, a system I had not only participated in, but enforced. Thank you for the painful but necessary awakening." I never responded. Some bridges remained too burned for reconstruction, but I took quiet satisfaction in knowing the ripples of change continued spreading outward, beyond our company walls. As for Mira, I heard through former colleagues that she struggled to find comparable employment after her termination. Apparently, forcing employees to work with potentially contagious tropical diseases doesn't look good on a resume. I couldn't bring myself to feel sorry for her. The most meaningful moment came almost exactly 1 year after my hospitalization. Dr. Whitman invited me to speak at a public health conference about workplace illness policies and their community impact. Standing at that podium, looking out at a room full of health professionals, eager to hear how one sick employee's phone call had transformed an entire company culture, I finally understood the true nature of justice. It wasn't about punishment or retribution. It wasn't even about making Verna and Mira pay for what they'd done to me. It was about ensuring that what happened to me couldn't happen to anyone else, that the system itself was transformed rather than just the individuals within it. My revenge wasn't destroying the company that had nearly destroyed me. My revenge was rebuilding it into something better. Today, 3 years after that morning on my bathroom floor, our company's sick leave policy is cited in business schools as an example of how prioritizing employee health benefits everyone, workers, management, and ultimately the bottom line. The legislation I helped advocate for, requiring employers to provide meaningful sick leave, passed in our state last year and is being considered in 12 others. Sometimes I think about how different things might have been if I hadn't made that call to Dr. Whitman, if I'd simply gone home after the urgent care visit and kept quiet. How many others would have continued suffering in silence? How many would have become ill because a coworker couldn't afford to stay home? How many companies would have maintained the status quo, treating human health as an inconvenience to productivity? One phone call. That's all it took to begin unraveling a system built on the false premise that dedication means self-destruction. If you're watching this and recognizing your own workplace in my story, if you've been told to push through illness, if you've been made to feel replaceable while simultaneously being told you're too essential to take care of your health, know this. You are not alone. The system counting on your silence is more fragile than it appears. Sometimes justice doesn't look like what we expect. Sometimes it's not about making others hurt the way they hurt you. Sometimes it's about ensuring that particular hurt stops altogether. Not just for you, but for everyone. If my story has meant something to you, please like this video and subscribe to this channel. Share your own experiences in the comments below. Each story told chips away at the wall of silence, protecting toxic workplace cultures. Remember, no job is worth your health. No presentation is worth your life. And sometimes, the most powerful form of standing up for yourself is refusing to lie down when they tell you to.